Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel, homebrewers. This video, we're following up on a video that we put out just over 8 months ago that you have all gone wild for, and it involves a pinter. Now, as I said, about 8 months ago, we put a video out about how you could do small scale, all grain brewing in your kitchen and utilize a pinter as your means to ferment and serve and indeed carbonate that beer. You've all gone wild for it. It's one of our most viewed videos on the channel, and it's something we get asked questions either by our customer service team or indeed comments on the video literally on a daily basis. So we thought it was about high time we dusted the pinter off, got out our small scale brewing system and had a go at brewing something that's really going to push this to its limits. Now, the beer I'm going to be brewing using this pinter, actually, it's a traditional lager. Now, there are loads of kind of pseudo lager type recipes out there that maybe use different yeast strains like a Kolsch yeast or one of the thermotolerant yeasts that can perform at higher temperatures, thus negating the need for temperature controlled fermentation. But also, over the last couple of years, we've done a huge amount of work here exploring the benefits of pressurized fermentation. And one of the big benefits of pressurized fermentation is that you can brew a lager at ale temperatures and not get any of the weird off flavours that can be associated with it. And the reason for that is that the fermentation process under pressure limits the ester formation by the yeast. So kind of things like sulfury, really pungent off flavours that can be kicked off by lager yeasts when they're fermented at ale temperatures. We've had awesome success with it. We've been able to turn around absolutely spellbinding lagers in a couple of weeks using this method. So no elongated maturation times, no elongated fermentation times, no need to hold the temperature at like 10 or 12 degrees, but all the time using traditional lager yeast strains. Now, when we did our first video using the pinter, we explored that actually this little system is a pressurized fermenter. It carbonates the beer naturally through the CO2 that's generated during fermentation. It doesn't let oxygen back in. And we ended up with a hazy New England style pale ale at the end of that first video that was absolutely to die for. So really, it made me think, well, if you can do that, there's no reason that you can't ferment a lager under pressure using this and turn it around in similar time that we've seen in some of our, bigger sort of purpose-made pressurized fermenters like the FermZilla. It's a pressurized fermenter. In theory, it should all work the same. Well, in this video, we're going to put that to the test, and we're going to see whether you can make an awesome, really simple, but authentic lager in a couple of weeks using the pinter. Now, a couple of things to consider, or variables that are kind of a bit unknown for us. When we're fermenting lagers under pressure in a purpose-made fermenter like the FermZilla, really, we want to make sure that the pressure in that system is above 10 psi, somewhere between 10 and 15 psi. So we use a spunding valve to be able to control that. We don't have that option on this, so we don't really know what the pressure inside is being generated. So that's going to be the first variable that actually could catch us out, and we don't really know how that will show up. But equally, we've fermented lagers in small fermenters, pressurized fermenters like the Keg King Juniors before, and they've turned out absolutely brilliantly. Yes, we had a spunding valve on them, but there's no reason that a small batch couldn't work very well in this. Now, it's the beginning of the summer, late spring here in the UK, ambient temperatures around about 18 to 20 degrees. We're not going to put any kind of temperature control on this. We're just going to let it ferment once we've made our work using a traditional lager yeast strain, and we're going to see where we end up. Also, I'm really pushing the boundaries on time on this. I've set myself a schedule that this video needs to come out in less than 2 weeks' time. So we could be in a position where I feel completely vindicated and that this was the best idea ever. Equally, it could turn into a bit of a disaster. Time will tell. You'll have to stick around to the end of the video to see how we get on. Now, before I dive in and start brewing this, let's just touch a little bit on the equipment we're using today. So we're using one of our purpose-made 12-litre Malt Miller brewing kettles, but if you wanted to replicate this at home, you just need a saucepan that can hold probably around 10 to 15 litres in total of liquid. Most kitchens will have those, or indeed you might be able to get one of those fairly easily. We've got a thermometer so that we can check the temperature of the liquid that we're going to be handling, and also the temperature of our mash while that's taking place. Grain bag for our grain to sit in during the mash. We've got a mash paddle to give everything a good stir, and then we're using our Buffalo induction hob here, but equally this would work absolutely fine on your stove at home. Now you'll probably all be wondering a little bit about the recipe that we're going to be brewing today as well. Now it is a super simple, tried and tested lager recipe that I've used before. I'll just refer to my brew sheet and let you know a little bit more about what's involved. So we have 78% of lager malt. We're then using 16.7% of Vienna malt, and then 5.6% carapils. Now the Vienna malt's just going to make it a little bit darker, a little bit more golden when we end up in the finished glass, and the carapils is going to give us that nice crisp rocky head that we're really looking for. And you know, I associate with lagers, you want that gorgeous, really rocky, crispy head on top. Hop wise, we're going to be using SARS, which is one of my favourite hops to use for lagers. We're going to be doing a 60-minute mash and a 30-minute boil. Now the boil's going to have 3 additions of SARS added. We're going to have 20 grams added at 30 minutes, 20 grams added at 15 minutes, and then another 20 grams added at 5 minutes. That's quite a lot of hops for such a small batch, but SARS has a really low alpha acid content, so to get the bitterness that I want in the recipe, I need quite a lot of it. On that, I'm aiming for an overall bitterness of around 26 IBUs, which I think is the sweet spot and gives you just enough bitterness to keep wanting to go back. But also you get to experience the sweet, malty, bready notes from the grist that we're using as well. Now, because this is a stovetop batch and we're not doing any sparge, I've got 7 litres of strike water in my kettle that I've heated up to 67 degrees. When I add the grain, it's going to drop the temperature down to 65 degrees, which is the temperature that I want to be mashing at for the hour. Then we'll move on to the boil. Now, just a word on yeast. I'm going to be using WHC Einstein, which is a traditional yet forgiving lager strain. I know it can handle temperatures that are higher if fermented under pressure, and I know it will perform really, really well. I've used it a number of times in other beers. It's going to give us a really crisp, clean beer at the end, ideally. But as I said, that variable of not knowing what pressure that the pinter is actually going to be fermenting at could leave us in a situation where actually this goes completely wrong and we end up with something that's undrinkable. I'm pretty confident though that that isn't going to be the case, because as I said, Einstein is a forgivable yeast strain when making lagers. Right, without further ado, I think we should get on, get the wort made, get it put into our pinter, get the yeast pitched, and we'll see you in a little bit. Brew day's done. Our pinter is filled with 5 litres of that wonderful wort we've just made. I hit my numbers pretty much as I was expecting. The wort finished after the boil at 1040, which means I'm expecting it to finish after fermentation at around 1008, which will be a lovely 4.2% nice session strength lager. Now, one thing dawned on me whilst I was brewing this, and it was that usually when I'm making lagers, I will probably add some Browsol into the fermenter a couple of days before packaging so that I can package as bright a beer as possible. Now, I don't want to be opening the pinter during fermentation because I'm going to lose all of the built up carbon dioxide that's in there. So what I've done actually is add some clarity. Now, clarity is an enzyme that is used to both reduce haze in a beer, but also reduce the gluten content as well. We use it as standard here in almost all of the beers we brew. And I thought, well, actually, I can put that in because you put it in when you pitch the yeast, and that will help me end up with a bright beer that we are brewing in a very quick time. So I've got the dial set all the way up to 5 on the pinter, so that's keeping as much pressure inside as possible while still letting some out. We're going to leave this at ambient temperature in our warehouse, which is around 18 to 20 degrees at the moment, and we'll see how we get on. So make sure you stick around to see how the finished beer ends up. The time is here to see if I've been able to successfully turn a lager around using traditional lager yeast in our pinter. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that I was setting myself a challenge to see if I could brew this beer in under 2 weeks. Well, it is definitely under 2 weeks. So actually looking at the dates, it's Wednesday the 21st of May today, and I brewed this on Monday the 12th. So we are only 9 days from grain to glass. Now, this could go incredibly wrong. I've only sampled the beer when we took the dock off of it, so I've got no idea whether this is going to work or not, but we will find out in a minute. Now, just a couple of words on fermentation. I said again at the beginning of the video that we were fermenting this beer at ambient temperature, which is exactly what we did. But also we had a spike in the temperature here during that period of time. I think in the warehouse here, it got well over 20 degrees. So the beer fermenting would have been over 20 degrees. Now, I've had success fermenting WHC Einstein at temperatures in the range of kind of 18, sometimes even a little bit higher than that, but never really over 20 degrees, even under pressure. So I'm really curious to see how it's turned out. Now, because I was pushing myself, I checked to see if fermentation was done after only 5 days, and it was. So I took the dock off. I took a little sample out of the tap with the thought that, well, okay, if it's not done, I can put the dock back on, leave it again for a couple more days and then see where we land. But actually, I did a sample using our Anton Par, Easy Dens and Smart Ref combination to see where the gravity was, and it got down to where I expected, which was 1008. So that means that the beer's around about 4%. After that, I put it somewhere cold, got rid and cleaned the dock, and I left it for a couple of days. Now, I've had it in our fermentation chamber, which is currently sat at 4 degrees, and it's been sat there since that point Friday when I took the dock off. So I've not poured any more out of it. I've got no idea whether it's going to be clear, but I think right now we should jump over, pour ourselves a pint and see exactly how we've managed to get on. Right, here we go. I've got my favourite lager glass. Got to be a Budvar glass whenever I'm drinking a lager for the first time. Let's open up the ferm chamber. Now, as you can see, the pinter's at a slightly awkward angle because I've got another beer in a fermenter down here. And I daren't move it either because I don't want to disturb it. I want to have the best possible chance of having clear beer out of this. So let's go in, give it a pour, see how it comes out. Well, it's carbonated, that's one thing. Well, would you look at that? It's almost clear. I'll take that as a bit of a win. And it's carbonated. Let's have a sniff. And it smells like lager. Right, I'm going in for a taste. Okay, I'm calling that a 95% success rate, but let's flip round over there and we'll go into some of the why. Right, let's dive into this, and I'm going to tell you exactly why I think this isn't 100% of a success, but I also think that the things that aren't quite right are things that actually are down to me, not down to the brewing of this beer or the process or the equipment we've used at all. Now, first and foremost, it is a little bit hazy. Now, I think that's down to time, and I think that's going to be the theme running through this. I'm sure if I left that in the fridge now for 2 weeks, it would be absolutely pin bright. Now, the second thing, I'm definitely getting a very slight hint of diacetyl, which is that butterscotch kind of Werther's Originals flavour that you can get with some beers during fermentation. It's produced actually by the yeast, but it will also be cleaned up by the yeast. So again, a bit more time and that will absolutely disappear. But equally, I could have got rid of it by leaving the fermentation to sit for a couple more days at that warm temperature, and the yeast would have naturally gone through that whole diacetyl phase, produced it and cleaned it up before we took the dock off and put it into the fridge. Actually, the things that I'm noticing with this beer are all down to me and the time restraints I put on myself to get it turned around in under 2 weeks. Now, if I had said I want to do this in exactly 2 weeks, I think those few extra days would have helped me certainly with the diacetyl situation that I've got going on, but might have even meant that the beer would be absolutely pin bright. Now, I don't know, but I was rushing this, trying to get it out under a time frame to show you all what can be done in a very short amount of time when you're fermenting beers under pressure. But I can't get away from the fact that actually the Pinter did its job perfectly. The carbonation levels on the beer are spot on. The fermentation happened brilliantly. There's no sulphurous kind of off flavours being produced by the yeast from being fermented at that warmer temperature. So actually all of the things that we wanted the Pinter to perform on, it did a perfect job. What let it down was me and my impatience to get this turned around so super quickly. Now, one other thing that I think I would do next time I brew a batch of beer to go into our Pinter, I'm actually going to brew it slightly bigger. I'm going to try and brew 7 litres of finished wort, because I could have definitely got at least another litre, maybe 1.5 litres into the Pinter for fermentation. I don't think I've maximised the capacity of it with this, and when you're talking on such a small scale, getting the most out of it is actually really, really important, because if you're drinking it in these size glasses, it ain't going to last very long. Oh, one other thing I probably could have done with this as well, if I really wanted to avoid that diacetyl situation, would have been to add ALDC. It's an enzyme that stops the production of diacetyl. In fact, I think it stops the precursor to diacetyl being formed, therefore stopping diacetyl being formed. Again, like the clarity that we used in this beer, you only have to add a very, very small amount, especially in a batch that's only this size, and it would have prevented diacetyl altogether. So I think that might be something I'll try next when I'm brewing another lager using the Pinter. As I said, I think the things that have let this down have been me, my impatience, nothing to do with the ingredients we've used, the process we've undertaken, or indeed the equipment that we've used to ferment and serve the beer, the Pinter. That's done its job exactly as we would have expected based on our last experience brewing with it. So I'd thoroughly encourage you all to have a go at trying to turn around a traditional lager fermented under pressure if you've got a Pinter knocking around at home and you've not moved into trying some of these smaller kind of 5-6 litre batches. We've got a load of recipe kits available on the website, but equally use our recipe generator. Find a recipe out there, scale it down to a 5 or 6 litre batch, put the ingredients into our recipe generator, and you could be brewing a beer just like this, arguably better than this, in your kitchen and be serving it up to your friends and family and feeling really good about the fact that you've brewed some of your first all grain batches. Now, as ever, if you've got questions about anything we've covered in this video, please drop them down in the comments section. I'll get back to you. We love seeing what you've got, but equally, if there are any suggestions on what you want to see us do next with a Pinter, let us know in the comments section as well. Now, you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. But also, if you are on Facebook, come and check us out on our new Facebook group, which is the Malt Miller Homebrewing Hub. You get to see a few behind the scenes things, chat with some of our kind of most engaged customers, and equally, you might get to see what we're cooking at the weekend. So, other than that, I'm going to go and finish this and hope you all have a fantastic brew. Cheers.